Cleveland, Ohio. On Old Franklin Boulevard stands a house whispered about for more than a century. A house built out of love that turned into something far darker. Its walls have witnessed more deaths than the city's archives can count, and its secrets are buried deep within stone and shadow. Some say the voices of the dead still echo through its halls. Others claim the house itself watches you, waiting. This is the story of Franklin Castle, one of America's most haunted and mysterious homes. Before we begin tonight's story, I'd be grateful if you subscribed. It helps me reach my first 100 followers. There are many more stories waiting to be told. In the late 19th century, Cleveland was a city of growth, a place where immigrants arrived with dreams of fortune and permanence. Among them was a German banker named Hannes Tiedemann, who wanted to give his family not just security, but legacy. On a quiet stretch of Franklin Boulevard, he began building what would become one of the city's grandest homes. Completed in 1883, the mansion rose in heavy Victorian splendor. Tall towers, carved stone arches, stained glass windows, and dark oak stairways that spiraled through the center of the house. It was unlike anything else on the street. To neighbors, it was a sign of wealth and triumph. To the Tiedemanns, it was meant to be a promise, a place of warmth, of laughter, of safety. Inside, the home was filled with music and light. Louise Tiedemann hosted gatherings for the city's German community, and the sound of children's voices often drifted from the halls. The family seemed happy, almost untouched by the hardships that followed many newcomers to America. But something in the foundation of the house never settled. Hannes Tiedemann ordered the construction of several narrow corridors and hidden rooms within the walls. For protection, he said. The reason was never clear. Workers claimed that some doors led to solid stone, others to stairways that ended abruptly. It was as if the house had been built to conceal rather than to shelter. Then, in 1881, before the final stone was even laid, tragedy struck. The Tiedemanns' young daughter, Emma, died suddenly. The music stopped, the windows were shuttered, and the echoes inside the mansion changed. The laughter was gone, replaced by the stillness that would never leave. What began as a monument to love had taken its first breath of sorrow. In January of 1881, before the construction of Franklin Castle was even complete, tragedy struck the Tiedemann family for the first time. Their 15-year-old daughter, Emma, was found dead inside her bedroom. The official cause was listed as diabetes, but rumors spread quickly through the neighborhood that she had taken her own life. The maid who discovered her body left the house within days, refusing to ever speak about what she had seen. The door to Emma's room was locked after her burial, and from that day on, it was said the air behind it remained unnaturally cold, even in midsummer. 2 years later, in 1883, another death followed. Louise's mother, who had been living with them, passed away quietly in her sleep. Hannes ordered an immediate burial, no public service. That same year, the family welcomed a newborn son who lived only a few days. Another child died of pneumonia soon after, and a third followed under what local papers described only as unexplained causes. By 1886, only 2 of the Tiedemann children were still alive. That year, death returned for Louise Tiedemann herself. At 57, she was found lifeless in her upstairs bedroom, the result of what doctors called a cerebral hemorrhage. Yet the maid swore that the door had been locked from the inside, and the key missing. After her passing, Franklin Castle grew silent. The fires no longer warmed the rooms, and the hallways held a constant chill. Servants reported hearing soft footsteps at night, followed by the whisper of a woman's voice. On still evenings, they claimed to hear knocking from behind Emma's sealed doors. In grief and desperation, Hannes Tiedemann ordered parts of the hallway to be bricked up, as if walls could contain what had already taken root. But the sounds continued, faint, steady, and unmistakably human. Franklin Castle, once built as a monument to love, had become a home claimed by death itself. After the death of Louise Tiedemann, silence settled over Franklin Castle like a heavy fog. Hannes withdrew from the world, closing off most of the rooms and sleeping in his study. The house that had once been filled with life became a hollow maze of locked doors and empty halls. But when silence took hold of the mansion, that's when the house began to speak. The first to notice were the servants. They whispered about soft voices that echoed from the upper floors at night. Faint, measured, and unmistakably human. Some claimed they heard quiet conversations behind sealed doors. Others the sobbing of a child that faded into the walls. One maid quit after seeing the nursery door slowly swing open by itself, even though every window was shut tight. Outside the home, rumors spread quickly. Neighbors said that windows on the second floor would glow faintly in the dark, though the electricity had long been turned off. Others swore they saw a woman dressed in black standing motionless at the window, staring out toward the street. A police patrol once recorded strange movements of light near the house's facade, but when they searched the grounds, no one was there. Inside, Hannes seemed to lose his sense of time. He spent long nights sitting before the fireplace, speaking quietly to no one. In a small notebook found years later, 3 short entries were written in his hand. The voices don't stop. They say I'm guilty. They want me to stay. By the winter of 1887, Franklin Castle was no longer a home. It was a living organism that fed on grief. Servants fled. Neighbors crossed the street to avoid it, and the local papers began calling it the House of Ghosts. Yet those who entered all described the same thing: an invisible weight, a constant chill, and a feeling that someone unseen was still inside, waiting. Franklin Castle was no longer silent. It had found its voice. In the early 1890s, Franklin Castle began to change once again. Hannes Tiedemann, now older and increasingly withdrawn, ordered a series of new renovations. Officially, he claimed the work was meant to improve the home's appearance. But the blueprints told a different story. Small windowless rooms, corridors that led nowhere, stairways that ended abruptly in solid walls. When workers asked why, Tiedemann's response was brief: for protection. No one questioned him further. Yet as the renovations continued, strange details emerged. One carpenter noticed a hollow sound behind a bookshelf. When they removed it, they discovered a narrow passage descending toward the basement. Inside, they found scraps of fabric, empty bottles, and a pair of small children's shoes. Tiedemann arrived within the hour, ordered the entrance sealed, and warned the crew never to mention it again. Rumors spread quickly through Cleveland. Some said Tiedemann had built the hidden rooms to conceal bodies. Others believed he used them for rituals, or to hide from the spirits of those who had died under his roof. Neighbors spoke of voices carrying through the walls long after the workers left. By 1895, Following the death of his last surviving child, Hannes finally abandoned Franklin Castle. The mansion stood empty, silent, and cold. Yet those who later entered described hearing sounds behind the bricked walls. Faint scratching, quiet tapping, whispers that stopped when someone spoke. One later owner recalled that while clearing the basement, laborers found a locked wooden hatch. When they forced it open, there was nothing inside, just a void and a lingering smell of decayed cloth that clung to the air for days. Some historians would later dismiss the rumors, calling the hidden passages the work of a paranoid man. But for those who heard movement behind those sealed walls, there was little doubt something had been built into the foundation of Franklin Castle, and it had never left. After Hannes Tiedemann abandoned Franklin Castle in 1895, the house stood empty for nearly a decade. Its stone walls were wrapped in ivy, and its windows turned black with dust. Local children crossed the street rather than walk past it, calling it the breathing house. But at the turn of the century, new life returned to the mansion when the Miller family moved in from New York. They dismissed the ghost stories as superstition until the house began to prove them wrong. For the first few weeks, everything seemed normal. Then, late one night, Mrs. Muller called the police, claiming someone was walking in the attic. Officers searched the property but found no one. Still, they reported hearing faint thuds behind the walls, slow, rhythmic, and deliberate. A local newspaper soon ran a short headline: "New owners complain of restless nights at Franklin Castle." From that point, the atmosphere shifted. The house grew colder. The family's maid fled one evening, terrified, after seeing a woman in black gliding through the upstairs hallway before fading into the shadows. Dark stains began to form on the bedroom walls, marks that returned even after repainting. In the nursery, a single toy would fall from the shelf at the same hour every night, no matter where it was placed. The Millers lasted barely 2 years. After their youngest son fell gravely ill without medical explanation, they sold the property and left Cleveland. In the decades that followed, tenants came and went, each with their own story. Some heard the laughter of children echoing through locked rooms. Others spoke of knocking from behind the bricked corridors. One tenant, a former soldier, claimed that on winter nights the fireplace in the study would ignite on its own, and in the flickering light, a man's shadow appeared on the wall, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. Franklin Castle seemed unwilling to accept the living. Every new owner came to the same conclusion: this house did not belong to the living anymore. By the mid-1960s, Franklin Castle had become a relic of another time. The once grand mansion, once called the Jewel of Cleveland, now stood empty, its windows boarded and its halls filled with dust. The neighborhood around it was changing, but the house on Franklin Boulevard remained the same: dark, cold, and waiting. In 1968, a Polish-American couple, the Romanowskas, purchased the property. They dreamed of restoring it, perhaps turning it into a boarding house or a small museum. But within weeks of moving in, strange things began to happen. Footsteps echoed on the attic stairs at night. Knocking came from inside the walls. A faint smell of incense drifted through the halls, even when no candles were lit. From the basement, late at night, came the low murmur of what sounded like chanting. Neighbors started to take notice. Unfamiliar cars parked by the gates long after midnight. Candlelight flickered in the upper windows. People claimed they heard voices. Latin prayers, mixed with something darker. Whispered in German, police were called several times after complaints from nearby residents. When officers searched the house, they found only melted candle wax, broken glass, and a few black hoods scattered on the floor. In one room, a wooden crucifix hung upside down. Word spread quickly through Cleveland. Franklin Castle had become a meeting place for a cult. The Romanovskas moved out less than a year later. In a rare interview, Mrs. Romanovska told a local reporter, "Oh, there's something in that house. It waits for you. Every night, it comes closer." After their departure, the mansion became a magnet for thrill seekers, students, journalists, and paranormal investigators. Some left with ruined equipment. Others swore they saw a woman in black, standing motionless on the staircase. Every few years, new owners tried to breathe life back into Franklin Castle. But when night fell, the same silence returned. Heavy, electric, and aware. No matter who held the deed, the darkness in Franklin Castle never changed its owner. By the late 20th century, Franklin Castle had cemented its reputation as the most haunted house in Cleveland. For decades, owners came and went, each lasting only a short while. The mansion stood silent and weathered, its windows shattered, ivy climbing its stone facade. Even abandoned, it felt watched, as if something inside was waiting for the next intruder. In the early 1990s, a businessman from Pennsylvania purchased the property with plans to restore it into a historical museum. Renovations began in the fall of 1998, but workers immediately reported problems. Tools disappeared overnight. Doors opened on their own. The faint smell of smoke hung in the air long before any fire had started. Security guards claimed to hear children laughing and footsteps following them during their nightly rounds. Then, on November 25, 1999, Franklin Castle caught fire. Flames tore through the upper floors, wooden staircases collapsed, and the roof caved in. Despite the destruction, no one was hurt. The building had been empty. When investigators later examined the ruins, they noticed something odd. The fire had not touched the bricked-up walls that dated back to Tiedemann's renovations. It was as though the flames had avoided them. That week, the Plain Dealer newspaper published photos of the burned-out mansion. In one image, taken through the smoke, readers claimed to see a woman in a long black dress standing in the second-floor window. The editors dismissed it as a trick of light, until the original negative was examined and confirmed to be untouched. The fire gutted much of the interior, but the structure survived, scarred, blackened, and silent once more. Locals took it as a sign. Franklin Castle could not be destroyed. The blaze consumed the wood and paint, but the darkness within those walls remained. Whatever lived there had endured tragedy, time, and even fire itself. Franklin Castle had burned, but the haunting had not. Today, Franklin Castle stands restored. Its stone facade gleams once again in the sunlight, and only a careful eye can see the scars left behind by the fire of 1999. To tourists, it is a piece of Cleveland's history, an architectural relic wrapped in mystery. To locals, it remains something more, a house that remembers. Visitors who come for night tours often report strange sensations. Some feel an unexpected chill on the upper floors. Others hear footsteps behind them in empty rooms. Guides tell stories of soft piano notes drifting through the halls, though no piano has stood in the house for decades. In the basement, a faint smell of smoke sometimes returns, lingering for just a moment before fading away. In 2011, A team of paranormal investigators spent the night inside the mansion. Their instruments recorded sudden temperature drops, faint whispers of a woman's voice, and the soft tapping of something behind a bricked wall. One of the researchers later said, "You don't feel afraid in there. You just feel watched." Despite countless attempts to rationalize the stories, Franklin Castle continues to draw those searching for the unknown. Some visitors claim to see a young girl looking out from the second-floor window before vanishing. Others have witnessed a woman in black standing at the staircase, motionless, staring down as if waiting for someone to return. Locals have long stopped trying to explain it. They simply say, "You don't fix Franklin Castle. It fixes you." Perhaps they're right. Time doesn't heal this house. It preserves it. It holds the whispers, the footsteps, and the shadow of everything that once lived within its walls. Franklin Castle has survived death, decay, and fire. Yet deep within its stone heart, something still stirs. Not alive, not dead, just remembering. And it seems that this house will never forget those who never truly left.